Today, we're finding slope from points and from graphs. Your essential question is, how do I find slope? Your learning intention. I'm learning to identify the dependent and independent variable and find slope. You're given 4 warm-up questions. So you know that A is -2, B is 5, and C is 0, and D is 4. Use substitution and order of operations and see if you can complete these expressions. Pause the video, and then when you're done, check your answers. Well, I hope you tried on your own. So if we're looking, C is 0, so this is 0 times -2 plus 5. All I did was substitute the values in for the letters. Order of operations says I multiply before I add. 0 times -2 is 0, plus 5 is 5. So if we're looking at the next one, C is 0. 0 times -2 plus 5, quantity squared, equals. Now, ordinarily you do parentheses and then exponents and then multiply. But I want you to think about what's going to happen. Whatever number this is, I will be multiplying by 0. So I know that the answer has to be 0 at this point. But let's see what happens. 0 times 3 squared, -2 plus 5 is 3, which is 0 times 9. 3 squared is 9, which is equal to 0. So as you're applying all the rules and stuff, also apply common sense. If I know up here that when I multiply by 0, I end up with 0, I can save myself some work. Okay, substitute in and see if you can do the next one. D is 4, so this is 4 times -2 plus 0 times 5. 4 times -2, 0 times 5 is 0. 4 times -2 is -8. 0 times 5 is 0. So the answer is -8. Okay, for the last one, we're going to add them together. -2 plus 5 plus 0 plus 4. -2 plus 5 is 3, plus 0 plus 4. 3 plus 0 is 3, plus 4 is 7. Hopefully you were able to do those on your own and get the answer correctly. If not, we need to practice more on substitution. Okay, so if we're looking at slope, what is slope? Slope is basically the rise over the run, or your difference in your y values divided by the difference in your x values. If you notice, when you're doing the formula, you've got to start with the same point both times. So if we're looking at the first one, if we're going to find it, this is x, this is y, x, and y. I can call this x2, y2, x1, y1. Does it matter which point I start with? No, because the slope's going to be the same between the points, because the line segment between the 2 points will have the same slope. So, change in y, your slope is the change in y over the change in x. I like to use the little delta symbol. The little triangle is actually the Greek delta, and it means the difference of or the change in. 12 minus negative 16 over negative 7 minus 7. Twelve minus a negative 16 is 12 plus 16, which is 28, over negative 7 minus 7 more is negative 14. Okay, when we simplify, negative 28 divided, or positive 28 divided by negative 14 gives me negative 2, because 2 times 14 is 28. Okay, pause the video and see if you can do the next one on your own. If you want to start and call this x2 and y2, that's fine. Either one can be x1 and y1 and x2 and y2. As long as when you're setting up your formula, you start with the same point both times. Okay, x, y, x, y. My slope, the change in y over the change in x. 24 minus 16 over negative 5 minus 3. Okay, so what is 24 minus 16? That would be 8 over negative 8. Negative 5 minus 3 more is negative 8, which gives me negative 1. Okay, find the slope of this line. How many units does it go up and how many units does it go to the right? We know that this is a positive slope because it starts at the bottom and goes up. So with this, we're going to count. Delta y over delta x. How many am I going up? The important part is to make sure you find where it goes through a corner of a box. So this one, if you're looking, it doesn't go through the corner of a box till clear up here. So I've got to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My rise is 8. My run is 1, 2, 3. So the slope is 8/3. Okay, if you notice, you're counting the boxes. So this is 1 box, 2 boxes, 3 boxes, 4 boxes, 5 boxes, 6 boxes, 7 boxes, and 8 boxes. And the same when you go to the right. So a lot of my students want to count the first dot as 1, but it's not. You've got to count the full box. And that leads us down to definitions. So we need to know what the difference between an independent and a dependent variable is. Think of the word independent. As teenagers, you want to be independent. That means you want to be able to be on your own, make up your mind what to do, and all that good stuff. So applying that to a variable, an independent variable, is the input of a function, a variable whose value determines the value of the output or the dependent variable. So independent is your input. It determines the value of the output. And this is also the input. And in our case, it's usually X. Okay, so if the independent is what you're putting in, the dependent is what you're getting out. The dependent variable is a variable that depends on what you put in. It is the output of the function, and a variable whose value depends on the value of the input. So this is the output. In this case, it is y. We might call it f of x, but it will be dependent on what you put in as your variable. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit to identify the dependent and the independent variables. Think about it. Which one has the effect on the other? So if I'm looking at the dependent variable, that is my output. So in this case, the dependent, my output is z, because that's what it is equal to. This value depends on what I put in for t. My independent is t. Okay, look at the next one and think. Which variable, p or h, depends on what I put in for the other one? Once again, your dependent is your output. Your independent is what I'm going to put in. Okay, usually x. This is my x. So my dependent is usually the y, which is 9. My independent is usually the x, which is -3. And if you look on the Cartesian plane when you're going up and down, That's your dependent variable. Right or left is your independent. Right or left is your x value. Up or down is your y value. Okay, so we've got 3 graphs to find the slope of. So let's look at the first one. Step number 1, when you're analyzing, is it positive or negative? This one's negative. That means I go down and to the right. I've got my points of intersection marked for me. That's where it goes through the corner of the box. I go down 1 box, 2, 3, 4. I go down 4. I go right 2. 1, 2. Down 4, right 2. Can I simplify? Yes. So this will be negative 2. On the next one, if it goes straight up and down, what is my slope? Well, I'm going to look at 2 points. I'm going to do the point negative 3, negative 1. And I'm going to do the point 3, 5. For my slope, it's going to be 5 minus negative 1 over 3 minus 3. So 5 minus negative 1 is 5 plus 1, which is 6. 3 minus 3 is 0. 6 over 0. Is there a problem? Yeah, I cannot divide by 0. So this is undefined. You cannot divide by 0. You cannot find that slope. So if it is perfectly vertical, it is undefined. What if it's perfectly horizontal? If it's perfectly horizontal, is it a positive slope? No. Is it a negative slope? No. What number is between positive and negative? 0. So if you have a perfectly horizontal slope, it is a slope of 0. Perfectly vertical will always be undefined. So for the next one, what is our slope? This time it is not marked. You've got to find 2 intersection points. Here's one. As I go up, here is the next one. Remember, if we don't catch the consecutive ones, that's okay. We'll just have to simplify. So as I am looking at this, it's positive, so I don't need to put the plus there. I'm going up 1, 2. My rise is 2. My run is 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 over 4 simplifies to 1 over 2. Okay, now we're getting ready to look at the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So if I look at the first one here, my y-intercept is clear down here. Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't have to, if you wanted to put the whole point, you would put 0, -5. Most of the time, you just see -5. Where does it go across the y-axis here? At -1, 2. So that y-intercept is -2. Okay, you have two graphs. If you notice, one is negative, one is positive. If it starts at the top and goes down, that's your negative slope. If it starts at the bottom and goes up, that's your positive slope. Pause the video and see if you can identify the slope and the y-intercept on these two graphs. Well, I hope you tried. If I am doing my counting, I'm going down 1, 2, and I'm going right 1, 2. So this is negative 2 divided by 2, which is -1. And I go across the y-axis at -1, 2, 3. So my y-intercept is -3. What about the next one? We know it's a positive slope. I've got to identify the 2 points I'm going to use. I've got one here. I go up 1, 2, 3. Not quite on the corner of the box. So if I come up here, it is. I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my rise is 8. My run, 1, 2, 3. So my slope is 8 over 3. My y-intercept is 1, 2, 3, 4. Positive 4. Okay, now, how do you know you're successful? You know you're successful when you can identify the dependent and the independent variable and find the slope. Remember that your dependent variable is your output, your independent variable is your input. Your dependent variable is your output. Your slope can also be called the rate of change. So I hope this helps you learn how to find the slope.